Hi everyone, my name is Andrea. I will be giving the student perspective on the Danish way and the points that Anders just had, and yeah, talk a bit about what it feels like, all these systems and ideas that he talks about, how they actually feel in real life if you are a student in Denmark. But firstly, my name is Andrea. I'm 20 years old and I currently work as international coordinator at Rysensten Gymnasium. So I help Anders with international related issues, with our international partnerships, and yeah, just in general, our relations abroad. And I graduated from Rysensten Gymnasium in 2024, so this summer. And during my 3 years here, I was student body president. I was elected student body president, and I also participated in different clubs and was the club president of different student-run organizations and clubs here at the school. Um, and yeah, so I have a good idea and a kind of a sense of both what the student life and student community is from the club perspective, but also just from an ordinary student, and from the lectures. Furthermore, I studied a year abroad in Spain, in Seville. So I also have sort of an idea of what a high school feels like in a very different country from Denmark, and the difference between that. So in that way, I have that kind of extra perspective, and reflection on how the Danish system is very different from, for example, Spanish one. So the first topic here that Anders talked about was also the self-esteem topic, um, and I think that, um, well, I'm going to be taking into perspective both my time and in primary school and secondary school and also in high school here at Rusenstein. But especially in primary and secondary school, you can feel that the self-esteem and the teacher's interest in the students' well-being is very important. So the teachers, especially in primary and secondary school, feel very responsible for the well-being of the students, um, and it's definitely a part of the culture as a teacher in primary school, and very integrated in the way that they handle situations and the way they teach. um, and an example of that is when I was around 12 years old. One of the my classmates felt left out. She didn't feel like she had any friends, and didn't have really a good relation to a group or people in the class. And my teacher pulled me aside, me and my friend, because she saw that we had a really strong friendship and we had a strong connection to most of the people in the class. And this dynamic she noticed and asked us if we would be able to just take care of the student a bit and talk to her, make sure um she's invited to everything that goes on. So just kind of getting her into the class community but through us. And I think that really showed that she cares about the well-being of all students and also the well-being and of the class as a whole system, as a whole community. um, so that definitely adds on to the students feeling a sort of self-esteem and worth, because the teachers are recognizing them for a person and not just for a student that needs to have certain results or learn certain parts of the curriculum. And the second thing is the way we give feedback. I know Anders talked a bit about this as well. But for example, in the first years of school, both here at Rysenstein, the first year, and also in primary school and half of secondary school, you don't get any grades. You only get feedback. And this is a way that many schools have chosen to do it in order to highlight that the important thing is not the result, but it's the progress, and that feedback is actually more important than what your result is. So oftentimes we will only get feedback and only get told what we can do better, but not have a sense of how we are in relation to others. And I remember once in German class, I only got a grade and no feedback. And it was so strange to me because I thought, what can I do with this grade? I don't know what to better, and I don't know how to change, how to evolve and become better at the subject. So it just meant nothing to me because I did not know what to do with this number that was on the paper. Um, And yeah, so I think the key is the teachers value progress more than they value the result. And it's quite important that they know this, that it's not, you're not valued at which result you have or which grade you get. So, for example, if you go from a D to a B, it's better than, well, it's not better, but it's a better progress than going from an A minus to an A plus. So the progress is really important, and the important part is not that they tell the students that get A plus that they haven't progressed, because they have, but it's just recognizing that even though you get not the best result or the best grade, your progress has still been really, really good. And yeah, so the teachers just value that we all have different baselines, and we know that students come from different backgrounds, and therefore they will also obtain different results because of the different capabilities that they have. um and yeah, so there, this kind of, I guess, removes the comparison to other students and the competition in between students. So I think that adds on to the self-esteem of students, feel like they're important even though they don't get A plus in all signatures, but that their progress is really important. Yeah, and then uh, another thing is the that is quite present in the Danish system is the way we integrate group work into lectures. And one of the tools that we use for group work, that I've experienced a lot at Rysensten, is the distribution of roles. So there are many different ways to do group work, which is not just sitting down at a computer answering questions and working. So one of the tools that the Danish teachers use a lot is matrix groups, which are groups where students are separated into different smaller groups. Then they, each group reads and analyzes one thematic, and then the other groups read and analyze other thematics. So after everyone has read and analyzed, you will then be paired into groups, um, with students who read something else and analyzed something else, and you will each be teaching what you just analyzed and learned to the rest of the group. So in this way, you're teaching students how to teach others and listen to others, and it kind of breaks down the authority of the uh teacher, and kind of challenges the way that teaching works. Um, and yeah, showing students that they're capable of teaching something they just learned as well to other peers. And in that way, we will see our peers in a different light than we did before, and see them as someone who can also, someone that we can also learn from. Um, and actually, someone that we can sometimes learn more from than the teacher, because they have a different viewpoint. Yeah. And then another tool that they use are academic conversations. And now I translated this quite directly, but it's not really accurate to what it is. I don't know exactly how to get the Danish meaning across, but it's basically a conversation in between students, and it's less formal, but it's still academic. So the topic is academic, but it's less formal than the normal class situation. So oftentimes we will do roundtable discussions where everyone sits computers away, and just we sit in a circle looking at each other, and we talk about something we read or watched or analyzed. And in that way we kind of complement one another's knowledge all the time, and we add on to the knowledge that our peers have. And if they analyze the point, I can add on to it after. I think oftentimes when you analyze the text for an assignment, you can end up in a bit of your own bubble, and looking outside of that bubble can be difficult. Um, so these academic conversations help break down that, and kind of make a dynamic analyzation. So you're constantly thinking, rethinking, and reanalyzing your points as the other peers add on to the conversation. Um, and then you also learn to listen to someone else, and listen, and then after learn and interpret in a very dynamic manner. So I think that works very well for creating this empathy. um yeah. And then we have the teaching of the democratic values that Anders also talked about, and how we do this. And it has a very big presence just in the overall school life here at Rusenstein. So the important thing is that we do all of it mostly in praxis, or it needs to have a perspective on how it can work in praxis. So we do MUN conferences. I'm sure that many of you know that already. And all countries in the world do this, but we have one here at our school that we arrange, but it's a bit different from others because you don't apply to go to MUN. You don't need to be the best at MUN, but it's actually mandatory for our whole second grade. So they all need to do this MUN experience. And in that way, we don't necessarily get the best MUN students. We don't get the ones with the most practice or the ones who are the best at debating, but every student gets to experience this MUN and gets to take another perspective into their debate. And yeah, so that's one way that we do democracy in praxis. And in general, in the student involvement, student clubs, and also the student body, it's very like a very obvious sign of student democracy. But in general, there's always a presence of democracy in our student clubs and the way that we're arranged and the way we choose the leaders and such. So in that way, students get to have their own little community of a democratic community inside of the school as an organ. And yeah, so I think another thing that I learned from being the student body president is that um there are also democracy in between different levels of authority. And with that said, it means that um you're not only teaching the democratic values, but I can actually question the decisions of the authorities and the leaders at the school. They will not necessarily always implement it, but they will always listen to what I have to say on their decisions. So we're able to ask questions on the decisions of the leadership at the school. And I think that possibility also creates a sense of democracy and knowing the democratic values. um, but most importantly, I think that in the classes, there's also a sense of democracy. So we do feedback on the teachers, on their lectures. We do feedback on bigger assignments and how our preparation has felt. So we can always evaluate how well we think that the education and the teaching worked for us. um, and in that way, the students also feel that we evaluate when we evaluate the teachers and the classes, the assignments, the students feel that um, they actually have an opinion, that the public opinion matters. And I think that's key in understanding democracy, is that believing the opinion of the public matter. And if you don't understand that and you don't feel that, then democracy, you will not believe in democracy. So just learning the students that um, the opinion of us matter, even though we are not a part of the leadership. I think that's a very integrated part of the school here and the school culture. And I think that's also why um, we we don't see democracy as necessarily just the government, but we see it as a way of living, as a way of structuring every day and structuring the education and our studying. Yeah. And then lastly, I have some reflections on the Danish system as well, because obviously it's not only good. I think that for me, I've always struggled a bit with group work, and coming to Rusenstein, it was quite overwhelming that there was a big amount of group work because I've always preferred doing things alone. And I've had so many good experience with it here, but I also know that sometimes group work can fail. So it's very trust based, and everyone needs to put in an effort, and you need to trust that the people in your group put in an effort as well. And if not, then the concept will fall to the ground, and people will not want to put in that big of an effort in group work. So that's always a a risk. So I think that lectures with only group work would not work well either. So it's always a balance of the two. And then I think that the innovative forms of learning and the focus on critical thinking can sometimes also create a deprioritization and incomprehension of the students, from the like an incomprehension of sometimes having to learn something that is not does not have a direct link to praxis. So if you can't see the direct link to what this can mean in praxis and how you can use it, you'll feel like it's not valuable, it's not important for you. So that's definitely a phenomenon that I have seen amongst the students. Um, but obviously, again, it's always a balance on how to structure the lectures. But that's really the only thing in terms of the critical thinking. But I think that overall, my experiences have been great here at Rusenstein, and yeah, I hope that you got more of a student perspective, and I wish you all a lovely day. Thank you.